The arrogant alien scum in the Rakari battle fleet howled with laughter as they watched the lone human ship enter their star system. To the untrained eye, the vessel looked small, pathetic, and primitive compared to the sleek and advanced Rakari warships. But the Rakari were fools, and every last one of them was about to pay for underestimating humanity with their worthless lives. Commander Mira sneered at the view screen, her four eyes narrowing as she beheld the puny human craft. She tapped a button on her command chair and opened a channel to broadcast a message to the rest of the fleet. "Look at this piece of junk, my warriors," she crowed. "The humans send a single tiny ship against the might of the Rakari Empire. They must be even dumber than they look." Guffaws and mocking chatter erupted over the comms as the Rakari crews ridiculed the approaching human vessel. On the bridge of the RSS Dauntless, Captain Henry Cooper gritted his teeth, his knuckles white as he gripped the armrests of his captain's chair. He took a deep breath, trying to center himself. Everything rode on what happened here. Right now. The fate of humanity itself hung in the balance. "Comms, transmit a greeting and message of peace to the Rakari flagship," Henry ordered. His communications officer nodded crisply, tapping commands into her console. "Transmitting now, sir. Greeting protocols and language package loaded." Henry waited, staring at the fleet of alien ships arrayed before him on the view screen. A minute passed, then another. No response came back from the Rakari. Henry frowned. "Send it again, all channels and frequencies." His comm officer confirmed and retransmitted the message. This time, a vid screen blinked to life on the main display. The disdainful face of Commander Mira appeared, glaring at Henry from the bridge of her ship. "Pathetic humans," she spat in broken English. "You have violated the sovereign territory of the Rakari Empire. Power down your ship and prepare to surrender immediately. If you do not comply, we will annihilate you." Henry stood from his chair, fixing the alien commander with a steely gaze. He had to try to reason with her. The survival of the human race was at stake. "Commander Mira, I am Captain Henry Cooper of the RSS Dauntless. We come in peace on a mission of exploration and diplomacy. Our intrusion into your space was not an act of aggression. Enough," Mira cut him off with a snarl. "We do not engage in diplomacy with inferior species. You will surrender now and relinquish your ship to us, or you will be destroyed. This is your final warning." Henry slammed a fist down on the armrest of his chair in frustration. He couldn't let the Rakari seize the Dauntless. The ship contained humanity's most advanced AI system and quantum computing technology. If the aliens got their claws on it and reverse-engineered it, they would become unstoppable. The human colonies wouldn't stand a chance. He had to make Mira see reason, even if it meant laying all his cards on the table. Henry looked directly into Mira's eyes. "Commander, listen to me. You don't want to do this. If you attack us, we will be forced to defend ourselves. And I promise you, if you push us, you'll see the true power of humanity unleashed. You have no idea what we're capable of. Walk away now, while you still can." For a moment, surprise flickered across Mira's face. Then her features contorted with rage. "Enough!" She turned to bark orders at her crew. "All ships, battle formations. Target that human ship and open fire. Tear them apart." Henry saw dozens of plasma cannons and antimatter torpedo bays power up on the hulls of the Rakari warships. He dropped into his seat and punched the ship-wide intercom. "All hands, battle stations. This is not a drill." Alarm sirens blared. The crew scrambled to their posts. Henry turned to his weapons officer. "Charge the singularity cannon, power to maximum." The officer blanched. "But sir, that weapon has never been tested. We don't know what will—" "I know the risks," Henry snapped, "but it's our only shot. Do it." As the alien ships opened fire, unleashing a hellish barrage of superheated plasma and antimatter warheads, Henry whispered a prayer under his breath. It was time to show these alien bastards what humanity was made of, even if it killed them all. Time seemed to crawl to a halt as Henry stared wide-eyed at the view screen, his heart racing as he took in the cataclysmic destruction wrought by the singularity cannon. Where the Rakari fleet once loomed, now hung only the shattered remains of broken ships and scattered debris. Henry's mind reeled at the magnitude of the weapon's power, a cold chill running down his spine despite his relief. Henry forced himself to tear his eyes away, punching the comms. Earth Command, this is Captain Cooper of the RSS Dauntless. Rakari fleet neutralized. The singularity cannon. It works. God help us. It works too well. Requesting immediate instructions. Over. The response came swiftly, the flickering visage of Admiral Johnson appearing on screen. Captain Cooper! Damn fine work neutralizing that alien threat. The older man's brow furrowed. But using that experimental weapon? Christ, Cooper. That thing manipulates fundamental forces. If anyone manages to reverse engineer it, warfare will never be the same. The balance of power. Understood, sir. Orders? Johnson collected himself. We're dispatching the research vessel ESS Newton to your location. They'll assist in securing and studying that infernal device. Sending coordinates for rendezvous now. The view screen winked out and Henry sank back in his chair. What had they unleashed? The ESS Newton glided through the vacuum, sleek and angular against the starry void. Aboard the bridge, Dr. David Chen pored over incoming sensor data, his mouth a hard line. What do you make of it, Henry? He glanced up at the haggard man sitting across from him, a far cry from the steadfast captain he knew. Henry scrubbed a hand over his stubbled jaw. Honestly, I'm still trying to process it myself. That weapon, it terrifies me. The power to reshape worlds, end civilizations. A ping from the sensor array interrupted them. Chen frowned. We're picking up a distress signal from a planet in a nearby system. Shall we divert to investigate? Henry considered only a moment before nodding. Even with the weight of the galaxy seeming to rest on his shoulders, he couldn't ignore a cry for help. Do it. Take us in. The Rakari colony stretched before them, a desolate ruin of scorched earth and shattered domes. Henry and Chen picked their way through the rubble, scanning for survivors. Help. Please. The weak croak drew their attention to a collapsed section of wall. Pinned beneath lay a young Rakari male, his 4 eyes glassy with pain. Henry knelt, helping to shift the debris. Easy there, we've got you. The Rakari coughed. I am Cal, engineer, the fleet. Gone? Henry nodded grimly. I'm sorry. Cal shuddered. No. The militarists. Their madness brought this. He fixed Henry with a desperate stare. You must understand. We were peaceful once, before they seized power. Your weapon, it could end their tyranny. Bring back balance. Henry exchanged a loaded look with Chen. The chance to liberate an oppressed people warred with the instinct to protect Earth. Chen spoke first. We have to consider it, Henry. If we share this technology... A shrill alarm blared before Henry could respond. Chen checked his scanner. A warship just dropped out of warp. It's Rakari, and it's heading right for us. Admiral John, Cal spat the name like a curse. Butcher, he seeks your weapon to subjugate all who oppose him. Henry's eyes narrowed, a hard tenacity settling over him. Like hell, he'd let some power-mad despot get his claws on the singularity cannon. He turned to Cal. If we're going to stop him, we'll need your help. What do you know about his ship? As Cal revealed John's weaknesses, a desperate plan began to take shape. Henry met Chen's gaze. We're going to bury that son of a bitch. Here's what we'll do. The acrid smell of burnt circuitry filled Henry's nostrils as he surveyed the smoking ruins of Jean's warship. Debris floated lazily in the vacuum, a grim testament to the power they'd unleashed. He turned to David and Cal, their faces illuminated by the glow of emergency lights. We need to move, Henry said, his voice tight. The Rakari won't take this lying down. Cal nodded, his 4 eyes blinking rapidly. You are correct, Captain. The militarists will retaliate swiftly and without mercy. They made their way to a nearby outpost, commandeering a communications array. Henry punched in the codes to establish a secure link with Earth Command. Admiral Johnson's weathered face appeared on the screen, his expression grave. "Cooper, what the hell happened out there?" Henry took a deep breath. "Sir, we neutralized the immediate threat, but we've kicked a hornet's nest. We need to strike at the heart of their power before they can mobilize against Earth." Cal stepped forward, his voice steady despite the tension in his posture. "There is a way. The Triumvirate, our faction's leaders, they reside on a space station called Nexus Prime." Henry outlined the plan, watching Johnson's face grow increasingly skeptical. "It's a long shot, Admiral, but if we can take out their leadership, we might be able to end this before it escalates further." Johnson rubbed his temples. "Christ, Cooper, this is way above your pay grade. But, given the circumstances, I don't see that we have much choice. You have a go. I'll send you our best." The next hours were a blur of preparation. Commander Sarah Thompson arrived with a squad of Earth's most elite soldiers, their hard eyes and steady hands speaking volumes about their capabilities. Cal huddled with Henry and David, poring over holographic schematics of Nexus Prime. "The station's defenses are formidable," he explained, pointing out key systems. "But I have allies on the inside who can help us bypass them." A young lieutenant burst into the room, her face pale. "Captain, long-range scans have detected a massive Rakari fleet on an intercept course with Earth. ETA, 72 hours. Henry's stomach dropped. He met Sarah's eyes across the room, seeing his own commitment reflected there. "Looks like our timetable just got a hell of a lot tighter. Let's move, people." They boarded a sleek Rakari shuttle, its stealth systems humming as they approached Nexus Prime. Henry's palms were slick with sweat as they maneuvered past the outer defense grid, relying on codes provided by Cal's resistance contacts. They docked in a deserted maintenance bay, the station's cavernous interior looming before them. Cal led the way through a maze of service tunnels, the human team moving with practiced silence. As they neared the central control room, a sharp hiss was their only warning before plasma bolts scorched the air around them. Elite Rakari warriors poured from hidden alcoves, their weapons blazing. "Take cover," Henry shouted, diving behind a bulkhead. The air filled with the staccato of gunfire and the acrid smell of ozone. Sarah moved like lightning, her rifle barking as she dropped 2 Rakari with precision headshots. The Earth commandos worked in perfect sync, their advanced weapons and training giving them an edge in the close-quarters battle. Henry felt the sting of a near miss on his cheek as he leaned out to fire. He saw one of his men go down, clutching a smoking wound in his side. The firefight seemed to stretch for an eternity, but in reality, it was over in minutes. Breathing heavily, they regrouped. "Status?" Henry barked. "2 wounded but mobile," Sarah reported. "We're still combat effective." They pushed on, finally reaching the central control room. The doors hissed open to reveal the Triumvirate. 3 imposing Rakari, their ornate armor gleaming under the harsh lights. Henry stepped forward, his weapon raised. "It's over. Surrender now and we can end this without further bloodshed." The lead Triumvir sneered. "You fool! Our fleet will reduce your precious Earth to ash long before you can hope to stop us." Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the station. Cal grinned fiercely. "That would be my friends in engineering. You were saying?" With the station's defenses compromised, Henry's team sprang into action. In a flurry of movement, they subdued the Triumvirate, securing the control room. Henry moved to the main console, his fingers flying over the alien controls. "This is Captain Cooper to ESS Newton. Fire the singularity weapon on my mark." A chilling voice crackled over the comms. "Captain, this is Earth Command. The Rakari fleet has begun orbital bombardment. We're taking heavy casualties." Henry's blood ran cold. He met David's eyes, seeing his own horror reflected there. "Newton, fire now." Through the station's viewports, they watched as a pinprick of absolute darkness bloomed in space. Nexus Prime shuddered, then began to break apart as the singularity's crushing gravity took hold. But something was wrong. The singularity continued to grow, far beyond its predicted size. Alarms screamed warnings as the entire star system began to warp and twist around the expanding maw of nothingness. My God, David whispered. What have we done? Henry's mind raced. They had unleashed a force they couldn't control, and now the entire galaxy hung in the balance. He turned to his team, his voice steady despite the fear clawing at his gut. We need solutions, people, now, or there won't be an Earth left to save. Henry's eyes darted across the Newton's main view screen, watching in horror as the singularity grew at an alarming rate. Alarms blared throughout the ship, their urgent wails matching the frantic beating of his heart. Options, people, he barked, gripping the arms of his captain's chair. Dr. Chen's fingers flew across his console. Captain, I think I have something. If we can bombard the singularity's event horizon with a concentrated burst of exotic matter, we might be able to destabilize it. Exotic matter? Henry's brow furrowed. Where the hell do we get that? Chen's face went pale. The quantum reactor. It's our only source powerful enough. The implications hit Henry like a punch to the gut. Using the reactor meant sacrificing the Newton, leaving them defenseless against any remaining Rakari forces. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for what had to be done. Evacuate all non-essential personnel to the escape pods, Henry ordered, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. Commander Thompson, I need you and your best engineers to stay behind and prep that reactor for detonation. Sarah nodded grimly, already moving to carry out his orders. The ship buzzed with activity as crew members rushed to their assigned escape pods. On the planet below, Cal crouched behind a crumbling wall, plasma bolts sizzling past his head. Jean's forces had redoubled their assault upon learning of the Triumvirate's downfall. We can't hold out much longer, a resistance fighter shouted over the din of battle. Cal's 4 eyes narrowed in concentration. Then we change the rules, he growled, tapping a sequence into his wrist computer. The ground trembled beneath their feet as massive cannons emerged from hidden bunkers across the landscape. With a thunderous roar, they opened fire on the Rakari ships above, filling the sky with streaks of superheated energy. Back on the Newton, Henry watched the reactor's power levels climb to critical mass. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he gave the final command. Initiate overload sequence. A blinding flash erupted from the ship, followed by a shockwave of pure energy that slammed into the singularity. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, slowly at first, but with increasing speed, the monstrous void began to shrink. It's working, Chen shouted, his voice thick with relief and disbelief. Everybody out now, Henry ordered as warning klaxons signaled the Newton's imminent destruction. They piled into the last remaining shuttle, rocketing away from the doomed vessel just as it exploded in a spectacular burst of light and debris. As they made planetfall, linking up with Cal and the resistance fighters, a cheer went up from the battered survivors. Their elation was short-lived, however, as the sky above them suddenly filled with Rakari warships, their weapons primed and ready to fire. This is it, Henry muttered, raising his rifle as he prepared for one last, hopeless stand. The first salvo from the Rakari fleet never came. Instead, a familiar voice crackled over the comms. This is Admiral Johnson of the Earth Defense Force. Looks like you could use a hand down there, Cooper. A massive wormhole tore open in space, disgorging a fleet of sleek, menacing Earth warships. Without hesitation, they opened fire, their weapons unleashing miniature singularities that tore through the Rakari armada without difficulty. Henry watched in awe as ship after ship vanished into the artificial black holes, leaving nothing but twisted debris behind. Jean's flagship, a behemoth of gleaming metal and pulsing energy weapons, was the last to fall. As the singularity weapon struck home, Henry could have sworn he heard the warlord's final scream of defiance echoing across space itself. As the dust settled and the realization of their victory sank in, Henry turned to face his allies, human and Rakari alike. The look in their eyes told him that they all understood the magnitude of what had just transpired. In a single day, humanity had gone from a fledgling spacefaring race to the most feared military power in the known galaxy. What now, Captain? Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Henry gazed up at the stars, a mix of triumph and trepidation churning in his gut. "Now," he said slowly, "we figure out what kind of galactic power we want to be." Henry Cooper stood on the bridge of the ESS Defiant, watching the stars streak by as they traveled at FTL speeds. The weight of command pressed down on him, heavier than ever before. He turned to face his crew, a mix of humans and aliens united in their cause. "Captain, we're approaching the Rorcan capital," Lieutenant Sarah Thompson reported, her fingers dancing across the tactical display. Henry nodded, his jaw clenching. "Bring us out of FTL. Comms. Open a channel to the Rorcan leadership." The view screen flickered to life, revealing a being with iridescent scales and large, expressive eyes. "This is High Counselor Xerax of the Rorcan Empire. We welcome you in peace." Henry's throat tightened as he delivered Earth's ultimatum. Surrender unconditionally or face annihilation. Xerax's eyes widened in shock. "Please, Captain, we are a peaceful people. Surely we can negotiate." "You have 1 hour to comply," Henry cut him off, ending the transmission. He turned away, unable to meet the eyes of his crew. 60 tense minutes crawled by. When no surrender came, Henry gave the order he'd been dreading. "All ships open fire, target their planetary defenses." The void of space lit up as miniature singularities tore through the Rorcan defense grid. Henry watched in horror as the weapons he'd once used to save Earth now brought destruction to an innocent world. "Captain," his comms officer shouted, "we're receiving a transmission from the planet's surface. It's Cal." Henry's blood ran cold. On screen, Cal's familiar four-eyed face appeared, panic evident in his expression. "Henry, you must stop this assault. My people and I have found refuge here. The Rorcans are peaceful. They pose no threat." Henry's mind raced. He thought of Earth, of his duty, of the people he'd sworn to protect. But as he looked at the burning cities on the monitor, he knew he couldn't continue. "All ships, cease fire immediately," he ordered, his voice steady despite the turmoil in his gut. "This mission is over." Protests erupted from his officers, but Henry silenced them with a raised hand. "We're leaving. Plot a course out of Rorcan space." As they fled, leaving the smoldering Rorcan world behind, Henry knew there was no going back. He gathered his most trusted crew members in the war room, laying out plans for their new life as fugitives. "We can't let Earth continue down this path," he told them. "We have to find a way to stop them." They traveled to the farthest reaches of known space, eventually discovering an abandoned space station orbiting a dead star. It became their home, their base of operations, as they worked to build a resistance against Earth's tyranny. Word of their defiance spread. Rorcan refugees arrived, bringing with them tales of Earth's brutality. Disaffected Earth officers trickled in, their consciences no longer allowing them to serve a corrupt regime. Henry stood before this ragtag group, a mix of species and backgrounds united by a common cause. "We're not just fighting for ourselves," he told them. "We're fighting for the future of the galaxy." Their first missions were small, hit-and-run attacks on Earth supply lines, freeing prisoners from labor camps on conquered worlds. But as their numbers grew, so did their ambitions. Intelligence reports revealed a massive shipment of exotic matter, bound for Earth's singularity weapon facilities. Henry knew this was their chance to strike a real blow against Earth's war machine. They planned the raid meticulously, using every scrap of knowledge and every ally they'd gained. When the day came, Henry stood on the bridge of the Defiant, leading a fleet of mismatched ships against Earth's most advanced cruisers. The battle was fierce. Singularity weapons tore holes in space itself as the two fleets clashed. Henry's hands gripped the arms of his chair as the Defiant shuddered under enemy fire. "We're not going to get another shot at this," he growled. "All ships, concentrate fire on their cargo hold." A storm of weapons fire converged on the Earth ship, carrying the exotic matter. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a silent flash that seemed to bend the fabric of space-time itself, the ship disappeared into a vortex of its own making. Cheers erupted across the bridge of the Defiant. They'd done it. They dealt a crippling blow to Earth's weapons program, but Henry knew the war was a long way to go. As reports came in of Earth's increasingly brutal tactics in response to their defeat, Henry realized that the final confrontation was approaching. The future of the stars would be decided soon, and he knew that he and his allies would be at the center of it all. Henry Cooper paced the bridge of the Defiant, his fingers tapping an anxious rhythm on his thigh. The stolen intelligence burned in his mind, each detail more horrifying than the last. "Captain," a voice crackled over the comm, "our Earth contact is ready to transmit." Henry nodded to his communications officer. The main view screen flickered to life, revealing a haggard-looking woman in an Earth military uniform. Her eyes darted nervously as she spoke. "Cooper, it's worse than we thought. Admiral Johnson's gone mad. He's planning to detonate a singularity bomb in the Proxima Centauri system." Henry's blood ran cold. My God, that's a system with over 50 billion inhabitants. The defector nodded grimly. "It's a show of force. Johnson thinks it'll make the rest of the galaxy fall in line." As the transmission ended, Henry turned to his crew. Their faces mirrored the horror he felt. "We have to stop this," he said, his voice low and intense, despite the toll. Within hours, the Defiant hummed with activity. Henry assembled his strike team in the hangar bay, eyeing the captured Earth stealth ship they'd use for infiltration. "Cal's intel puts the bomb at an Earth outpost in the Triladian Nebula," Henry briefed them. "We go in posing as a supply convoy. Once inside, we split up. Sarah, you're with me on the bomb. Cal, you take the Rorkan commandos and disable their defenses." The team nodded, faces grim with purpose. As they boarded the stealth ship, Henry caught Sarah's eye. "Ready for this?" She gave a tight smile. "Born ready, Captain." The journey to the Triladian Nebula passed in tense silence. As they approached the outpost, Henry keyed the comm. "Control, this is supply ship Gamma 93 requesting docking clearance." A tense moment passed before a gruff voice responded. "Gamma 93, you're clear to dock in Bay 4. The team collectively exhaled as the massive hangar doors slid open. Once inside, they split up without a word, years of training evident in their smooth, practiced movements. Henry and Sarah crept through sterile white corridors, their footsteps echoing in the eerie silence. They rounded a corner and froze. A squad of cybernetically enhanced soldiers blocked their path, gleaming metal augmentations visible beneath their armor. "Intruder alert!" one of them barked, raising a wicked-looking energy rifle. Henry dove for cover as plasma bolts sizzled past his head. He returned fire, his shots pinging harmlessly off the soldier's reinforced armor. Sarah tossed a pulse grenade, the electromagnetic burst shorting out the soldier's cybernetic enhancements. They pressed on, fighting their way through increasingly heavy resistance. Henry's comm crackled to life. "Cooper," Cal's voice was strained. "We've disabled the shields and anti-aircraft batteries, but we're pinned down. You need to hurry." Finally, they reached the bomb vault. The massive door slid open with a hiss, revealing a device that pulsed with barely contained energy. Henry rushed to the control panel, his fingers flying over the keys. "Shit," he muttered. "Johnson's rigged it with a dead man's switch. We can't disarm it without setting it off." Sarah's eyes widened. "So what do we do?" Henry's mind raced. "We use their own tech against them. We'll beam it into the nearby sun. It's our only shot." They fought their way to the teleportation control room, every step a battle against waves of Earth reinforcements. Henry's muscles screamed as he ducked and weaved, narrowly avoiding a hail of plasma fire. They burst into the control room, slamming the door shut behind them. Sarah laid down covering fire as Henry input the coordinates for the sun's core. "Now!" Henry shouted. A beam of shimmering energy enveloped the bomb, whisking it away in the blink of an eye. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the nearby sun flared with blinding intensity. The outpost shuddered as the shockwave hit. Alarms blared as systems failed across the board. Henry grabbed Sarah's arm. "We need to go, now!" They sprinted for the hangar bay, the very walls crumbling around them. The team piled into their ship just as the floor began to buckle beneath their feet. As they rocketed away from the doomed outpost, Henry watched the sun collapse in on itself, a singularity blooming at its core. The spectacular light show masked the devastating power of what they'd just witnessed. In the sudden silence of their escape, Henry looked at his battered, exhausted team. They'd won this battle, but the cost had been high, and he knew, with grim certainty, that the war against Earth's tyranny was far from finished. The shockwaves from the supernova rippled through space, a stark reminder of the power they'd unleashed. Henry Cooper stood on the bridge of the Defiant, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. The destruction of Admiral Johnson's outpost had been a victory, but a hollow one. "Captain," Sarah's voice cut through his thoughts. "We're receiving a transmission from a Raydorian scout ship. They've managed to break through Earth's blockade." Henry nodded, his mind focused. "Put them through." The view screen flickered to life, revealing a Raydorian captain, his iridescent scales dulled with stress. "Captain Cooper, we bring grave news. Earth has dispatched an armada to subjugate our worlds. They seek our shipyards and quantum research facilities." Henry's fists clenched at his sides. "How long do we have?" "Days at most. The armada is led by Admiral Trent himself." As the transmission ended, Henry turned to his crew. "We can't let Earth get their hands on those resources. We need to act now." In the war room, Henry laid out his plan to Cal, Sarah, and the other resistance leaders. "We'll use the stealth tech we captured to slip past their sensor nets. Then we hit them hard and fast in the Delrax asteroid belt." Cal's 4 eyes blinked in rapid succession. "A preemptive strike. It's risky, Henry." "It's our only shot," Henry replied, his voice firm. Hours later, Henry's ragtag fleet of resistance ships slipped silently through the void, their stealth systems masking their approach. As they neared the Delrax asteroid belt, Henry felt the familiar tightness in his chest. "All ships, prepare to engage," he ordered, his voice low and steady. "Fire on my mark." The Earth Armada appeared, their massive ships dwarfing the asteroids around them. Henry watched as they entered the kill zone, his finger hovering over the fire control. "Now!" he shouted. A storm of singularity warheads erupted from the resistance ships, tearing through space. The weapons found their marks, ripping holes in the fabric of reality itself. Earth ships vanished into the void, consumed by miniature black holes. "Target the flagship," Henry ordered as chaos engulfed the Earth fleet. The Defiant surged forward, dodging debris and weapons fire. They closed on Admiral Trent's ship, its hull scarred and burning. "Boarding parties, prepare for assault," Henry commanded, strapping on his combat gear. They breached the hull, storming into the corridors of the Earth flagship, the air filled with plasma fire and the screams of the wounded. Henry led the charge, his weapon spitting death as they fought their way to the command center. The doors hissed open, revealing Admiral Trent. The man's cybernetic enhancements gleamed in the flickering emergency lights. "Cooper," Trent snarled, drawing his sidearm. "You're too late. Earth will rule the stars." Henry dove for cover as Trent opened fire. They exchanged shots, neither gaining the upper hand. In a desperate move, Henry rushed forward, tackling Trent to the ground. They grappled, trading blows in a furious melee. With a final vicious strike, Henry overpowered Trent. The Admiral lay still, his cybernetic implants sparking uselessly. Henry staggered to the command console, activating the ship-wide broadcast. "This is Captain Henry Cooper. Earth's reign of terror ends here. Any further aggression will be met with uncompromising force." In the aftermath of the battle, as reports of their victory spread across the galaxy, Henry found himself in the observation deck of the Defiant. He stared out at the stars, lost in thought. Sarah approached, resting a hand on his shoulder. "We did it, Henry. We saved the Raydorians." Henry nodded, his expression grim. "But at what cost? How many more will die before this war is over?" They set course for Aquaria, a hidden world of endless oceans and underwater cities. As they descended beneath the waves, Henry knew that this was just the beginning. The true test lay ahead, the fight for Earth itself. The cerulean waves of Aquaria lapped against the hull of the Defiant as Henry Cooper paced the bridge, his boots echoing on the metal deck. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing a three-dimensional map of the Zarturi star cluster. Red icons representing Earth's invasion force blinked ominously. "Captain, we've intercepted a transmission from Admiral Jackson," Sarah reported, her fingers flying over the console. "He's ordering the Zarturi to surrender their shipyards." Henry's face hardened. "Play it." Jackson's voice filled the bridge, cold and imperious. "This is Admiral Jackson of the Earth Fleet. Your neutrality is no longer recognized. Surrender your facilities or face annihilation." "We can't let this happen," Henry muttered, studying the tactical display. He tapped his comm badge. "All senior staff report to the war room immediately." Minutes later, Henry stood before his assembled team. Cal's 4 eyes blinked rapidly, a sign of the Zarelian's agitation. Sarah leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Captain Drone of the Rorcan Commandos towered over the others, his scaled skin glistening under the harsh lights. "Earth's making their move," Henry began, bringing up a holographic projection of the Zarturi shipyards. "If Jackson gets those facilities, we're done. We need to hit them hard and fast." He outlined the plan, pointing out key targets and assignments. As he finished, a tense silence fell over the room. Cal spoke first. "Infiltrating those shipyards won't be easy, Henry. Their security protocols are legendary." "That's why you're leading the team," Henry replied. "Your tech skills are our best shot at cracking their defenses." Drawn rumbled his agreement. "My warriors will draw their fire. Jackson won't know what hit him." As the others filed out to prepare, Sarah lingered. "This is a hell of a risk, Henry." He nodded grimly. "It's the only play we've got." Hours later, Henry watched from the Defiance bridge as Cal's stealth shuttle slipped away, cloaked and bound for the shipyards. The waiting was excruciating. Finally, Cal's voice crackled over the comm. "We're in. Uploading the virus now." Henry leaned forward. "Drawn, you're up. Hit Omari with everything you've got." On the tactical display, a flurry of activity erupted around the planet Omari. Drawn's ships unleashed a devastating barrage, drawing Jackson's forces away from the shipyards. "All ships, this is it," Henry commanded. "Full speed ahead. Fire at will." The Defiant surged forward, leading the charge. Space lit up with weapons fire as they tore into the unsuspecting Earth fleet. Singularity warheads ripped holes in the fabric of space-time, swallowing enemy ships whole. Henry gripped the arms of his chair as the Defiant shuddered under return fire. "Take us in closer. I want to hit those construction slips myself." The ship dove through the chaos, weaving between debris and enemy vessels. Henry felt the familiar surge of adrenaline as they closed on their target. "Fire!" he shouted. Streams of specialized ordnance erupted from the Defiant, slamming into the shipyard's vital systems. Explosions bloomed across the massive structure, sending shockwaves through space. For a moment, victory seemed within reach. Then new contacts appeared on the tactical display. "Sir, Earth reinforcements," the sensor officer called out. "They're surrounding us." Henry opened his mouth to order evasive maneuvers, but a violent impact rocked the ship. Alarms blared as systems went dark. "Direct hit to our engines," Sarah reported, her voice tight. "We're dead in the water." Through the view screen, Henry watched Earth dropships approach, preparing to board. His mind raced, searching for a way out. Suddenly, a blinding light erupted from the heart of the shipyards. Cal's voice, tinged with static, came through the comm. "Reactors going critical. Get clear." The flash of the explosion seared Henry's retinas. When his vision cleared, the shipyards were gone, along with Jackson's fleet. As the Defiant limped away from the devastation, Henry allowed himself a moment of relief, but it was short-lived. "Captain," Sarah called out, her face pale. "Long-range sensors are picking up a massive Earth fleet. They're gathering in the Darien system." Henry's expression hardened. He knew what this meant. Set a course for Darien. It's time to end this, once and for all. The Defiant shuddered as it dropped out of hyperspace, the vast expanse of the Darien system stretching before them. Henry Cooper's eyes widened at the sight that greeted him through the view screen. A sea of Earth warships filled the void, their sleek hulls glinting in the light of the system's twin suns. "My God," Sarah whispered beside him. "There must be hundreds of them." Henry's eyes hardened as he surveyed the tactical display. "All ships, battle stations, prepare for immediate engagement." Before he could issue another order, space lit up with blinding flashes. Singularity warheads streaked towards the resistance fleet, punching through their defenses with terrifying ease. The Defiant bucked violently as a warhead detonated off their port bow. Sparks showered from overloaded consoles as the ship's superstructure groaned in protest. "Shields down to 30%! The tactical officer shouted over the din of blaring alarms. Henry's mind raced. They were outgunned and outnumbered. He needed to buy time. "Cal," he barked into the comm, "take the Rakari fighters and hit their flanks. Draw their fire away from our main force." "Understood, Captain," came the quick reply. On the tactical display, Henry watched as swarms of Rakari fighters peeled away from the fleet, darting between the massive Earth warships. Brilliant explosions blossomed in their wake as quantum torpedoes found their marks. Seizing the opportunity, Henry ordered the Rorkan frigates forward. Their sleek forms slipped past the battle lines, unleashing precision strikes against Vorshak's capital ships. For a moment, it seemed the tide might turn. Then Cal's frantic voice crackled over the comm. "Henry, one of Vorshak's ships? It's carrying some kind of superweapon, a singularity projector." Henry's blood ran cold. If that weapon activated, the entire system would be consumed. "We have to take out that ship," he said, his voice steady despite the fear clawing at his gut. "Prepare a boarding party. I'm leading this one myself." Commander Thompson stepped forward, his scarred face set in grim lines. "I'm with you, sir." Henry nodded, clasping the man's shoulder. "Let's go." The Defiant surged forward, weapons blazing. Their specialized ordnance tore through the enemy flagship's shields, opening a narrow gap. "Now," Henry shouted. Their boarding craft shot through the breach, slamming into the Earth ship's hull with bone-jarring force. Emergency hatches blew open, and Henry led the charge into the enemy vessel. The corridors became killing fields as they fought their way deeper into the ship. Automated sentry drones unleashed storms of plasma fire, while Earth shock troopers contested every inch. Henry ducked behind a bulkhead as a grenade detonated nearby, showering the area with deadly shrapnel. He popped out of cover, his rifle spitting death at the attacking Earth forces. They pressed on, leaving a trail of destruction in their wake. Finally, they reached the massive doors of the engineering section. "Plant the charges," Henry ordered, his voice hoarse from shouting over the din of battle. The doors blew inward with a thunderous roar. As the smoke cleared, Henry's eyes locked with those of Admiral Vorshak. The Earth commander's lips curled into a sneer. "You're too late, Cooper. The singularity projector is already primed. In minutes, this entire system will be nothing but a memory." Henry raised his weapon. "Not if I have anything to say about it." Vorshak's blade flashed out, knocking aside Henry's rifle. The two men clashed in a furious duel, their blades ringing as they fought for the fate of the system. All around them, resistance fighters and Earth troops battled for control of the projector systems. Henry caught glimpses of the fight as he parried Vorshak's relentless attacks. With a desperate lunge, Henry drove his blade through Vorshak's guard. The Admiral's eyes widened in shock as the blade found its mark. Henry wrenched the activation key from Vorshak's lifeless fingers, sprinting for the projector's control panel. With seconds to spare, he slammed the key home, terminating the firing sequence. An eerie silence fell over the engineering deck. Then cheers erupted from the resistance fighters as the realization of their victory sank in. Henry sagged against the control panel, exhaustion threatening to overwhelm him. They'd done it. They'd stopped Vorshak and saved the system. As reports of Earth ships surrendering or fleeing poured in, Henry allowed himself a moment of relief. But the war wasn't over, not by a long shot. His comm unit chirped urgently. New alerts scrolled across the screen, each more alarming than the last. Henry's eyes narrowed as he read the incoming intelligence. Something was happening back on Earth, something that could change everything. The bridge of the Defiant fell silent as the tactical display updated, revealing a sea of red icons converging on Earth's core systems. Henry's eyes hardened as he processed the implications. "Sir, we're receiving a distress call," Sarah reported, her voice wavering. "It's coming from Mars." Henry leaned forward, his heart pounding. "Put it through." The transmission crackled to life, filled with static and panic. "This is Colonel Thorne of Mars Command. Earth has gone mad. They've activated some kind of doomsday protocol, singularity bombs. Everywhere. God help us all." The signal cut out abruptly, leaving only the hum of the ship's systems. Henry's mind raced as he pieced together the horrifying truth. "Tactical, show me the quantum slipstream network," he ordered. The holographic display shifted, revealing a web of glowing lines connecting Earth's colonies. One by one, the lines began to pulse an angry red. "Those are the bombs," Henry muttered. "They're using the portals to spread them across the galaxy." Sarah's fingers flew over her console. "Sir, I'm detecting massive energy fluctuations. The portals are destabilizing. If those bombs go off, we'll lose everything," Henry finished. He smacked his fist on the arm of his chair. "Not if I can help it. All ships, this is Captain Cooper. We're initiating an immediate counterattack. Cal, take your Ricari fighters and start disarming those bombs. We're heading for Mars." The Defiant surged forward, its engines straining as they pushed to maximum speed. Henry felt the familiar pull of acceleration as they entered the slipstream. Minutes later, they dropped out of FTL near Mars. The red planet loomed before them, but something was terribly wrong. Fissures of blazing energy crisscrossed its surface, pulsing with otherworldly light. "Sir, the Rorcan boarding parties have seized control of the primary shipyards," the comms officer reported, "but they're encountering heavy resistance from the Loyalists." Henry nodded grimly. "Get me a secure channel to the boarding team." Captain Drawn's gruff voice filled the bridge. "Cooper, this place is a madhouse. These humans, they're not even trying to fight back. They're just ensuring the bombs detonate." A violent tremor shook the Defiant. Through the view screen, Henry watched in horror as a massive crack split the Martian surface, disgorging a torrent of unnatural energy. "We're too late," he whispered. "The master bomb. We can't stop it." As if in response to his words, a garbled transmission cut through the chaos. "This is Admiral Vorshak. You took everything from me at Zarturi. Now I take everything from you. The Omega protocols cannot be stopped. Long live Earth." Henry's blood ran cold as the truth sank in. There was only one option left. "All hands, this is the captain," he announced, his voice steady despite the fear clawing at his gut. "Prepare to overload the quantum slipstream drive. We're going to channel every ounce of power into the main deflector dish." Sarah's eyes widened. "Henry, that'll tear the ship apart." He met her gaze, his expression resolute. "I know, but it's the only way to stop this." As the crew scrambled to carry out his orders, Henry watched the Martian surface erupt with miniature singularities. The fabric of space-time itself seemed to warp and twist. "Now!" Henry shouted. The Defiant unleashed a blinding beam of energy, engulfing the master bomb in a cocoon of exotic radiation. For a heartbeat, reality itself seemed to split open. Henry caught a glimpse of impossible vistas, radiant beings that defied description reaching out across the cosmos. Then, as quickly as it appeared, the vision collapsed. The master bomb imploded, taking the quantum rift with it. A shockwave of unimaginable power tore through the Defiant, shredding metal and flesh alike. In his final moments, as oblivion claimed him, Henry felt a sense of peace. They had done it. They had saved the galaxy. The surviving ships of the rebellion watched in stunned silence as Mars vanished in a maelstrom of quantum energy. Where the red planet once stood, only a shattered husk remained, wreathed in storms of impossible physics. In the days that followed, as the full scope of the averted catastrophe became clear, the remnants of Earth's military structure crumbled. The rebellion, led by the newly elevated Cal, extended a hand of peace to the shattered remains of humanity. Cal stood on the observation deck of his flagship, gazing out at the scarred face of Earth. The demilitarization of the Sol system had begun, a long and painful process of rebuilding and reconciliation. "We will remember," Cal murmured, his 4 eyes blinking in solemn reflection. "We will remember the price of vengeance and the cost of salvation." As humanity took its first tentative steps into a new era, the echoes of the Omega protocols lingered. The galaxy had been forever changed, and the true test of their species had only just begun.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.